彼は木曜日のこの番組のゲストに来ます。今日のゲストは、ドナルド・ハリソンとディトロイト・ブルックスのつもりでいたら、はい、グループ全員が登場しました。
わお。
5人のメンバーが、全員来てるんです。どういうことになるか
今絶賛スタンバイ
待機中ですね。
はい、はい、セッティングしてます。
かなり面白いことになると思います。とにかくね、昨日の、コトンクラブで見たらね、全員ニューオーリンズの人たちなんですけど、想像をはるかに超えるいろいろな音楽を次々と展開するグループですからね、はい、とても楽しみです。
9時7分です。今日はゲストをお迎えしているバラカンボックスです。
I'm very pleased to welcome to the studio Donald Harrison on saxophone, Detroit Brooks on guitar and Max Moran on bass, and they were playing along very nicely with Tighten Up just now. Morning guys, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Saw you play at the Cotton Club last night and enjoyed myself immensely. Donald, I think I must have first heard about you when you were a considerably younger man. I think you'd probably just left the Art Blakey band it would have been the mid-80s?
That's right, in 86 I left Art Blakey.
Okay, and yesterday at the gig actually you played an Art Blakey number. Is he still to you a very important, significant figure?
Yeah, Art Blakey, in my estimation, kept jazz alive from the late 60s until he passed away in 1990, because there were no places for young musicians to play. And if you look at that era, almost every important jazz musician from 1968, really from the 50s, till he passed away in 1990, went through his band and learned the lessons of what it takes to be a jazz musician. So he was a very important figure.
Yeah, he was, I mean, I don't suppose he taught at schools, but his band was like a school for aspiring jazz musicians, I guess, as you said. I mean, throughout several decades, including people like yourself. You replaced Branford Marsalis?
Right.
In his band?
Right. It was an audition in New York. And actually, my teacher at the time was Bill Pierce, who was playing tenor saxophone in the band. And he introduced me to Art Blakey. And then at the auditions, Art chose Terrence and myself, and we went on to play with him.
So there was a continuum of musicians from New Orleans playing in his band at that time.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who was serious about the music got a chance to play with Art. So at that time, we weren't really playing New Orleans music, but we were trying to learn what New York music, New York bebop was about, and the blues from Art Blakey, things like that.
So it was kind of an education for you in past forms of jazz.
Well,
were you already aware of those kinds of jazz? I guess you must have been to be able to play in his band.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one thing to listen to the records, and it's another thing to play with masters. I really started with a guy named Roy Haynes when I was 19 and joined Art Blakey at 21. But, you know, when a person has actually played with Charlie Parker, they can say, no, that's not the way we did it, and show you exactly.
Right.
It's different than learning from a book or learning from a record. You know, it's a whole different experience. And it has a different feeling. Art Blakey has a different... When you play in front of him, he's been described as playing in front of a Sherman tank because he's so powerful. And he also... adds all the nuances to music. So you learn so much just from playing with a person who has mastered so many different things, so many aspects of how to play what I consider the hardest music in the world.
And interestingly, when you did his number last night, your drummer adopted a very Art Blakey posture. He had his back straight up and he was playing very much the way Art did, with that same kind of drive. Whereas on other songs, he was playing quite differently as well. In fact, all of you did such a broad swathe of music last night. from him. There was what's usually called, I suppose, hard bop. You did a Charlie Parker tune. You did a Duke Ellington number. You did some Mardi Gras Indian music towards the end of the set. Obviously, I mean, do you play that much different music typically when you're playing in the US as well, or was this just for Tokyo?
No, we've begun playing a lot of different types of music, and I've learned that the adage that Duke Ellington said, it's either good music or bad music, really holds true, because you would think that, oh, this is a jazz audience, or this is a soul music audience, or this is a New Orleans music audience. No, they're just music lovers. If you present it and you've done your homework and it comes from your heart, I think it speaks to people. So it's become a wonderful thing that people are accepting so many different types of music.
Absolutely. Well, since we have the three of you here with your music, with your instruments here in the studio, shall we get you to do a little jam for us? What would you like to do for us this morning?
We'll just make up a blues.
Okay.
And it'll be...
I'm cool with that.
We'll call it Tokyo Blues. In B flat.
Very nice. Could sit here and listen to you guys do that probably all day, and I'm sure you could do it very easily all day as well. But you're in your mid-50s, Donald. Detroit on guitar. You're a little older.
I'm a little bit.
I think you're the same age as me, actually. 1951.
Same age.
Okay.
62.
And the other three guys in the band, Donald, you were saying yesterday, were your students. Where do you teach?
I teach at a place called the Tipitinas Foundation.
Okay.
And we've been there for 10 years.
Is that associated with the Tipitinas Club?
It is. It's they're part of the Tipitinas Club that is geared toward helping musicians in the music community of New Orleans.
Uh-huh.
They give instruments to the high school students, and they have offices where musicians can come and either mix their records or do paperwork, help, it's an office for musicians. And then the part that I help create, which teaches young musicians how to become professionals and gears them in a way to get them scholarships to college. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's not actually a school. It's a more of a looser setup.
Yeah, it's not a school.
Foundation.
It's more of like a music camp.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not a formal school,
mm-hmm.
but it's a very serious music camp where You know, I always ask them, "You sure you want to sign up for this? Because it's, you know, we're training you to be a professional in here, and it's gonna take a lot of work."
Okay, but you have 3 of the graduates of your program actually playing in your band now.
Yeah,
and doing a pretty good job, I must say.
Oh, they're incredible. You know, they're considered one of the best young rhythm sections in New York. So it makes me proud.
So you guys are based in New York now?
Well, the band is based in New York. We play, even though we're from New Orleans, the drummer is still living in New York, Joe Dyson, and Max was there for a while. And the pianist, Connor Pappas, is living in New York. So those guys are cutting their teeth the way a lot of jazz musicians have over the years.
And are you yourself based in New York now? You're still in New Orleans?
I moved back to New Orleans in 1999.
Okay.
But I'm because I was there for 20 years, I'm still, I guess I'm in 2 places, because in New Orleans they consider me a New Orleans musician, but in New York they consider me a New York musician, and I play with all the incredible musicians in New York.
You're also the big chief of the Congo Nation, Mardi Gras Indian tribe. When did that start?
Well, my father was a big chief of 4 different groups. And then I decided to, instead of taking over his group, to represent Congo Square. And we'd always talked about changing the focus from Mardi Gras Indian to back to where it came from, Congo Square, which is an African aesthetic.
Right.
So when you listen to the chants and you listen to the drum beats and you look at the rituals, you realize it's truly African. So instead of Mardi Gras Indian, now I'm calling myself, and a certain number of other people are calling it Afro-New Orleans culture.
Oh, I see.
Which relates back to Congo Square. So, but I've been the chief of that group for about 15 years now. And we're still keeping something that I call one of the root cultures of American music alive. Because if you listen at jazz, then you realize that Jelly Roll Morton was a spy boy in the culture.
Oh, he was.
And that the great drummer, Baby Dodds, his family were drummers in Congo Square. And Sidney Bechet, one of the leading exponents of creating jazz, of course, all 3 of these guys, but he said everything that he plays was because of Congo Square.
Okay, I'm going to need to do a little bit of Japanese translation in a minute. Before I do that, let's get my head together. Shall we play a track from? I don't, unfortunately, have anything from the Congo Square group, but I do have a record of you with Chief Smiley Ricks and the Indians of the Nation, an album called Feathercraft. I'm going to play a track from that called Mighty Hunter.
All right, I actually produced that record.
Track 2. Here we go.
mighty hunter. He was God fearing, mighty hunter. And he did like he want, mighty hunter. On the Mardi Gras, mighty hunter. He had a big old gang, y'all, mighty hunter. Lord, he made him brag, mighty hunter. He was an Indian, mighty hunter. Lord, he had his fun, mighty hunter. He was a big old chief, y'all, mighty hunter. Lord, they scared to meet him, mighty hunter. He came across the river, mighty hunter. Oh, the Mississippi River, mighty hunter. He put the hole in the ground, mighty hunter. He had a big old crown, mighty hunter. He made a tambourine ring, y'all, mighty hunter. And the whole street sang, mighty hunter. Yeah, y'all, mighty hunter. Lord, he liked to fall, mighty hunter. He was off the wall, mighty hunter. And you know what I know, y'all, mighty hunter. He was a hero, mighty hunter. Lord, mighty hunter. Oh, y'all.
2002年に出た CD ですね。Chief Smiley Ricks and the Indians of the Nation、マイティハンター聴いていただきました。これはドナルド・ハリソン自身がプロデュースしたアルバムです。先ほどの話、最初アウトブレイキーの話をしたんですけど、若い時のドナルドはアウトブレイキーのバンドでサックス吹いていたんですね。まだ、19歳だったかな。違う、それがその前の仕事かな。21歳ぐらいでアートの、バンドに入ったんですけど、50年代から90年代に亡くなるまでアートブレイキーは若いミュージシャンに次々と機会を与える、もうほとんどもなんて言うんだろう、ミュージシャンのための学校のような、存在で、もうとても、尊敬しているミュージシャン、最も尊敬しているミュージシャンだと言ってました。で、昨日も彼の曲を1曲演奏したんですけど、とにかくね、幅広くいろんなタイプの、ジャズとかリズム&ブルーズとかファンクとかね、いろんな音楽をやってて、デューク・エリントンの有名な言葉をドナルドが、引用してて、やっぱりいい音楽と悪い音楽しかないっていうことは、音楽の好きな人ってみんな結局音楽が好きなんだっていう、そういう話をしてました。で、彼が、ティピティーナというニューオーリンズのクラブがあるんですけど、そこが持っている財団の仕組みの中で、若いミュージシャンたちを育てる役割をしているんです。で、今彼のバンドの、ピアノとベースとドラムの3人が、そのプログラムの卒業生で、今みんなニューヨークを拠点にしてるんですけど、ドナルドのバンドで、やってて、今ニューヨークで、優れた、リズムセクションとして今評判になっているという話をしてました。Okay, let's get back to our conversation. Actually, Detroit, I should ask you a few things as well. You have been around, have you been based in New Orleans most of your career?
All of my career.
Okay.
Yes.
And you come out of a gospel background originally?
Yes.
Okay. Which is the music that you feel most comfortable playing?
Gospel, because that's where I come from. But I mean, I've been with Donald for a minute now, and I mean, he makes it real, and it makes it comfortable. That makes it comfortable.
Right. There was just one song yesterday you laid out on, which was the Charlie Parker number. Well, it was Charlie Parker was famous for doing it, Cherokee, which was an incredibly fast tempo. Was that a song you didn't feel comfortable playing, or is it just something that doesn't require a guitar in the first place? Okay.
Basically, it doesn't require a guitar.
Okay. Because I was having images in my mind of Charlie Christian when he this legendary first meeting with Benny Goodman, when Benny Goodman called this very fast Rose Room, I think the song was, and he pointed to Charlie to start playing his solo, and he just played straight for 30 or 40 minutes, according to the legend. I wasn't there to see it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I guess these things happen once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, since you guys still have your instruments, shall we get you to play something else for us? Would you like to do one more thing?
Yeah, we can play. We're having fun up here. Maybe we can do a little New Orleans music, a little Iko.
Okay. which you finished the set off with yesterday.
Yeah. You ready? 1, 2, 1.
Your spy boy sitting by the bayou. My spy boy to your spy boy, gonna set your flag on fire. My spy boy and your spy boy sitting by the bayou. My spy boy to your spy boy, gonna set your flag on fire. Say Aiko, 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 Aiko Ande, a Jackie Mofino Anane, a Jackie Mofino Ane.
Yeah. You know, somebody should do an instrumental version of that and make it a hit.
I would hope so. I think you're hinting at me.
You need to do that, man. Have you been aware of that song ever since you were a kid?
Ever since I can remember doing anything, yeah. Certain songs, certain New Orleans songs. They play them all the time.
Right.
Like Big Chief by Professor Longhair. Sissy Strut by the Meters. Those are New Orleans classics, yeah.
Right, right. The expression Giacomo Finahe or Finane, have you any idea, first of all, what language it is, and second of all, what it means?
Yeah, you know, that's a secret language for those guys, but I actually do know what it means.
If you don't like what the big chiefs say, you just Giacomo Finahe.
Yeah, you can you can sort of figure out what it means. Not exactly, but the gist of what they're saying.
And I mean, they had this secret language, right?
Right.
So there's things like hey Pocky Way.
Well, that's not. That comes from something called two-way pocket way.
Right.
As far as I know, and so I don't know. The Neville brothers or the Meters put that together, But there's a chant go to a pocky will in the morning, to a pocky with the mama. So they took a hey pocky way, but that comes from to a pocky way. To a pocky way now, mama. To a pocky way, jump up and down. To a pocky way, what they talking about? To a pocky way now, in a pocky way.
Is that like a kid's chant?
No,
It's a grown-up thing.
If you hear all the drums, it's a war chant.
Okay. And
You're going.
Okay, I've read stuff about. Actually, there was an incredible book I read just recently. I'm sure you probably are aware of it. It's called the World That Made New Orleans. It's written by Ned Sublett.
Yeah, I think there's one chapter in there on me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about you, so I'm sure he must have sent you a copy of the book.
Yeah.
But for people like myself who weren't aware of the history, I mean, going back to like the 17th century, I guess.
Right.
There's a lot of really fascinating stuff like in there, and about why the music in New Orleans is so different from everywhere else in the U.S. And all of the relationships between Haiti and Cuba and those places as well.
Well, the main thing, those relationships are very important. But the main thing is that they let Africans play drums in New Orleans.
In Congo Square.
Yeah, it was the only place in North America where you could openly play drums and continue your culture from wherever you were from. And so everything got mixed up. And what I call it is an offshoot culture. When you look at what we call second line music, traditional jazz, and you look at what I deal with call Afro New Orleans culture, or the culture of the Mardi Gras Indians. All those things are offshoots of what happened in Congo Square, where all these different African identities got together and melded into a specific culture, Afro New Orleans culture.
今、コンゴスクエア、コンゴ広場の話がまた出てきたんですけど、アメリカのこれ18世紀から19世紀にかけてなんですけど、アメリカ全国で唯一アフリカの人たちが演奏することを許された場所がそこなんですね。で、ニューオーリンズの音楽がアメリカでユニークなのは、そのためです。で、いろんな今ある、いわゆるマルディグラインディアンと呼ばれる人たちだとか、あるいはそのトラディショナルジャズにしてもみんなコンゴ広場の、で行われていたことから派生した文化だという話です。It all sounds great anyway.
The thing I love about New Orleans music is at the end of the day, no matter what entity it is, it makes you feel happy, and it makes you want to dance, and it makes you happy to be alive.
I'll drink to that. Thank you very, very much, all three of you, and the other two guys who didn't actually make it into the studio here for coming in this morning. Let's finish off with one of the tracks that Detroit, you emailed me a few tracks yesterday. This one's called Mr. Cool.